leads us to the first session, the perfect love story, stemming from the Prophet ﷺ and his relationship with his wives, radiyallahu ta'ala anhun. And for this we have Mufti Hussain Kamani, and sadly, if it was a year ago, I would say our respected local scholar, but now he's not a local scholar anymore. He moved to Dallas, and he's serving the community there. So I have to say our beloved and respected visiting scholar from Dallas, Mufti Hussain Kamani. So as he makes his way up, I'd like to mention that Mufti Hussain Kamani was born and raised in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. His journey to pursue the sacred sciences began at the age of 6. By the age of 9, mashallah, Mufti Hussain Kamani completed his memorization of the Quran. And then to pursue higher Islamic sciences, he traveled to the UK, where he studied under some formidable, respectable, knowledgeable, righteous scholars. And for 7 years, Mufti Kamani studied a rigorous curriculum covering the Arabic language, literature, Islamic law, Islamic history, Islamic philosophy and aqidah, and just a little more. Okay. And then afterwards he completed his ifta, which is a specialization in Islamic law. It's a 2-year course, and he completed that, mashallah, specialization in fiqh, in Islamic law. He also completed his degree in business management from the University of Coventry in the UK. Right now Mufti Hussain Kamani is an instructor at Qalam Institute in Dallas, and his class Prophetic Code has been conducted by Qalam Institute, and thousands of people, alhamdulillah, have studied and taken part in that course and have benefited. And I remember one thing about Mufti Hussain Kamani, during IAW, Islam Awareness Week in colleges at UIC, we contacted him once and said, we want you as a speaker to speak at the IAW event, Islam Awareness Week. And the audience for that is usually non-Muslims. So he said, well, what's my topic? And we said, we're thinking something to do with the Prophet ﷺ. And he had a big smile on his face, and he said, I can do that any day. So alhamdulillah, he's with us today, and he'll address us, inshallah.
Okay.
I'll keep it here.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa, khususan ala sayyidi rusuli wa khatam al-anbiya wa ala alihi al-askiya wa ashabihi al-atqiya, amma ba'd. There was a female companion of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam whose name was Khansa radiyallahu anha. She has a very beautiful story, and it's a very deep story. And for some of us who've experienced pain in our life, that story will really relate with you. So Khansa radiallahu anha, she had a brother who died due to inter-tribal raids that occurred in Makkah Mukarramah. Her brother, when he died, she became very saddened. And she cried and cried and cried over the death of her brother. She shaved her head, and she said, I will never beautify myself again. What benefit, what good is there in life without my brother? And she remained like this. The Sahaba in Makkah Mukarramah were aware of her state. And people in Makkah would talk about how this lady was broken, how her heart was shredded into pieces. During the Khilafah of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh, Umar radiallahu anh, he came for Hajj. Someone came to him and they said to him, Amir al-Mu'mineen, there is a lady in Mecca who spends her day and night crying, crying, crying and wailing. Her name is Khansa. It would be nice if you can talk to her, give her some hope, and guide her to get herself together again. So Umar radiallahu anh agreed. He met with Khansa radiallahu anha. When he sat with her, rather than getting angry at her, shouting at her, like some of us may start off our conversations when we sit with people who are in violation with the teaching of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had empathy. He understood that the person that he was talking to was not a stone or a tree, this was a human being. And this human being had emotions, and people make decisions in their life because of a context they're in. Nobody wakes up a morning and just commits zina. There's a context, there's an experience a person goes through. And there are multiple incidents that occur. There are events that lead people to making certain bad decisions in their life. It doesn't make the decision right, but a person has to be understood in a context. You can't judge them based off a black and white scenario. Now, Umar radiallahu anh sat with her, and the way he starts off the conversation, he says to her, Khansa, everyone knows what happened to your brother, and we all are saddened by his death. And people tell me that you've written some poetry in his remembrance. So share some of those lines with me. Khansa radiallahu anha, she said, Min jadidin aw qadim. Do you want the new poetry or do you want the old poetry? So Umar radiallahu anh said, Awa min jadid, meaning you're still writing? That happened so many years ago, you wrote poetry that time, but you're still writing? Umar radiallahu anh said, Famin jadid. Then share with me the newest lines, the new part of the poetry. And she started reading poetry about the pain of a loss of a sibling, and how her heart felt, and how she felt abandoned and lonely because someone that she was so close to, who she had taken a promise to live her life with, was no longer by her side. And Umar radiallahu anh sitting there, he started crying. And he cried and cried and cried. And the reason why he cried so much is because Umar radiallahu anh recently had experienced the exact same pain in the battle of Yamama against Musaylama Kadhab during the Khilafah of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anh. Umar radiallahu anh's brother Zayd ibn al-Khattab was martyred. And when Umar radiallahu anh heard that his brother was killed in the battle, he started crying. And he kept saying one thing, Sabaqani al-husnayayn al-islam wa shahada. My brother beat me to the two things I love the most in this dunya. He became Muslim before me and he became a martyr before me. Sabaqani al-husnayayn al-islam wa shahada. So Umar radiallahu anh was able to relate to that pain. He left the gathering telling the Sahaba that leave this lady alone, she is broken and can never be fixed. Her pain is permanent. And he left. Khansa radiallahu anha continued to cry and wail in remorse, write poetry about her brother. Until a few years later, another very great companion came to Makkah Mukarramah. This time the people of Makkah went to this companion and they said to her that you've come from Medina Munawwara. There is a lady amongst us by the name of Khansa. She cries and cries and cries. As a female companion of the Prophet ﷺ speaking to another female companion, maybe your words will be meaningful to her. So Aisha radiallahu anha agreed to speak. She sat down with Khansa radiallahu anha and she said, Khansa, what's the issue? Khansa radiallahu anha said, well, even